Okay, ready for a little bit Torah study? That's the mitzvah of Shavuot. So the significance of Shavuot, even though the Torah does not say it explicitly, is that this is the holiday when God gave the Torah to the people of Israel on Mount Sinai, right? So we know what was given, which is the Torah. We know who gave it, which is God. We know who received it, the people of Israel through Moses. We know when they received it, which is 50 days after the first Passover, when they received the Torah. But I'm going to ask you a question. Where did they receive it? Where was the Torah given? On Mount Sinai. And where is Mount Sinai? So when I have a question that begins with where is, I normally go to Google Maps, and I did it. And what I got was a hospital in New York. And the second thing was a hospital in Miami Beach. And many of these. But no matter where you look, you're not going to find the actual Mount Sinai. And you should wonder about how come the place that hosted the most sacred moment in the history of the Jewish people, perhaps even in the history of all the monotheistic religions, we have no idea where it is located. And tonight we're going through several texts in which I will show you that it was done deliberately. And we're going to start with few texts that shows you that not only that we don't know where Mount Sinai is, but the Torah gave Mount Sinai several names. So even if we think we know, maybe we don't get the name right. So do you have the text here? Okay, so let's look at the first line from Exodus. This is the first time that this mountain is mentioned. This is the time when Moses was tending the flock. So Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. He drove the flock into the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. So the first time we meet the mountain of God, the name is not Sinai, the name is Horeb. We have an H here, but in Hebrew it's Chet, so it's Horeb. Okay, so this is the first name of this mountain. The second time is during the revelation, is during the time when God summoned the people and Moses, and then we read text number 2. Let them be ready for the third day, for on the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. So the second time this mountain is named, it's called Sinai. And then the third time, many years later, this is in the book of Deuteronomy, some 40 years after they received the Torah, the Lord our God made a covenant with us at Horeb. Again, when Moses is talking about the time when God gave them the Torah, Moses does not stay with the name Sinai or Sinai in Hebrew, but reverts back to the name Horeb. So it should be a little bit weird that the place that was supposed to be the holiest place, we don't even know what its name is. We have two names, and there are some names in the Torah that may allude to it that have a completely different sound from Horeb and Sinai. Okay, so this is already a clue for the idea that maybe the Torah didn't really want us to know. Well, I want to go to another series of texts that tells us that not only that we're not sure about the name, but we definitely don't know where it was. Let's go to number 4. In the second year, on the 20th day of the second month, the cloud lifted from the tabernacle of the pact, and the Israelites set out on their journeys from the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud came to rest in the wilderness of Paran. So the people of Israel stayed for a while near Mount Sinai, and then two significant things happened. The cloud, which was in a way representative of God, because when people saw the pillar of cloud, they thought or they saw God protecting them. God traveled away from the mountain, and so did the people. Okay, the mountain served its purpose, and everyone is leaving the place. Nobody came back to this place. Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, all the people you've read about in the Bible, nobody ever tried to go back to find it. Nobody cared about it, except of one, the most interesting, I'll say it mildly, prophet we have, and this is Elijah. Elijah, we always like to sing songs right when Shabbat is over, Eliyahu Hanavi. We even serve some wine for Elijah after at the Seder, right? But Elijah is the most disturbed prophet we had. Elijah had some serious mental, and spiritual problems. He did some huge things, many of them problematic. And at one point he decided he wanted to die. He is the only person in the entire Bible who went back to Mount Sinai. And let's go to the next page and read it in English. I hope I have let's just read the small line later. The one prophet who returns to Sinai to God, and then God told him, go return on your way. God was very unhappy with Elijah going on Mount Sinai. So the only person in the entire Bible who tried to go back, God yelled at him and said, get out of there. I don't want you over there. Okay, so it's quite clear that we don't know the name. Nobody went back. We probably don't really know the location. And the only person who probably knew the location, God kicked him out of there. Now, I want to look at another location that the Torah explicitly said that we should not know, we should not be able to ever find or to recognize. And this is the burial place of Moses. So at the end of the Torah, at the end of Deuteronomy, Moses dies, and let's look at source number 6. Moses, servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, at the mouth of the Lord. He was buried in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beit Peor, and no one knows his burial place to this day. So according to the tradition that reads this verse, the one who buried Moses was God. Okay, not even the people. And where did God bury Moses? God knows. Literally in this case. Forgive me for the pun, but this is exactly the point here. They didn't want anyone to know where Moses is buried. They didn't know anyone to know where Mount Sinai is. Now, many places are known to us. I mean, in general, when there is an important place, everyone knows where it is. You know where Mount Olympus is, right? You know where Mecca is, right? But you don't know where Mount Sinai is. You don't know where the grave of Moses. We do know about the location of another important mountain in the Jewish tradition. It's called Mount Moriah, What is the significance of Mount Moriah? That's where the place of the binding of Isaac, according to tradition, right? So when Abraham took his son Isaac to slaughter him, to sacrifice him, and God told him, don't dare doing it, this is the location of that event was Mount Moriah, and tradition tells us that upon that place, Solomon built the first temple and then the second temple. And what exists now on Mount Moriah? Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay, because these locations change hands, and now the third most important place to Islam is located on Mount Moriah. Okay, so if you want to think, why can't we just build the third temple? Is because we first have to get rid of the third important location to the Muslim community. And I believe there are about, I didn't check, but what, 2 billion Muslims, something like that. And what, 15, 16 million Jews? We don't want to take this chance. But I hope that at the end of this short Torah study, you will understand why it's not really so important. Now, we know where Mount Moriah is because the occasion there was about a family, right? The first family, but still a family. Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, that's what they were, few people. Mount Sinai was the first national event. It didn't happen to a family, it happened to the people of Israel. So when an occasion is related to a family, it's okay to know the location. But when it's related to everyone, no. So why is that? And why is that? But let's go to number 7. A person should always learn from the disposition of their Creator. For the Holy One left aside all the mountains and hills and rested the Shekhinah, meaning God's presence, on Mount Sinai. Why Mount Sinai? Not because it was the biggest, the tallest, the prettiest, just the opposite. It was completely insignificant. And let's just go fast to the next one, to the Midrash on Psalm 68, number 8. And there is a nice story. And the first quote a verse. And then, when the Holy One came to give the Torah, the mountains quarreled with one another. This one said, "Upon me the Torah shall be given." And that one said, "Upon me the Torah shall be given." Tavor and Carmel and Hermon, these are the high mountains in the area, boasted of their height, and Sinai was silent. It sounds like a great preschool story. The Holy One said, all of you are blemished compared to Sinai. So what was the virtue of Sinai? It was humble. He didn't even participate in this competition. He didn't think he had a chance to compete with all these really tall mountains because it was just, a little Nebuchadnezzar mountain. And God said, you know what? I'm going to give the Torah on you, upon you. Not because you're the best, but because you're the most humble. Or, if you will, because everyone knows when Mount Hermon is. This is the only place in Israel in some years that you can ski. We all know when Mount Carmel is. It's where Haifa is. Okay? But we have no clue where is Sinai. So Mount Sinai got its glory when the Torah was given, okay, because it was the most humble one. And then what happened? It didn't stay an important space. It went back to be humble, okay? It served its purpose. And this is even the halacha. We can read it, I'll just sum it up. 9. If you want to go to Har HaBayit, to Mount Moriah, to where the temple existed, you cannot just go and walk there. Forget about current politics. You have to go through many rituals of purifications. You cannot just walk there. You have to be ritually pure. For Mount Sinai, no. If you have an idea where it is, go up, down, whatever you want. Just not important. Let's go to the next one. I love this one because all the stories about, page 3. Rabba Bar Chana said, okay, what is bar? It's bar like in bar mitzvah, meaning son of. So many of them had the word bar because their names were in Aramaic. So Rabba, the son of Hannah said, once we were traveling in the wilderness, and a certain Arab merchant said to me, come, I will show you Mount Sinai. Because the Arabs or the Bedouins, they've been in this area forever, they know. I went and saw it, and it was surrounded by scorpions standing like white donkeys. In other words, all these stories about Rabba Bar Chana, they are weird, okay, but they want to teach us an important lesson. Even if you think you know where it is, don't dare. It's dangerous, okay? It's really dangerous. Don't go there. Very counterintuitive. We think that this should have been the place that all of us will go. But no, if you want to see scorpions as big as donkey, actually, make it more interesting to go now. But for people who are afraid of that, let's look at 3 different answers for why Mount Sinai, the location of it, was never revealed. We start with Maimonides. Number 11. In the days of Enoch, humanity fell into a great error. They said, since God created these stars and spheres to govern the world and placed them on high and appointed them honor, it is fitting to praise and glorify them and apportion them honor. And this is the very root of idolatry. Idolatry is the biggest sin in the Bible. Now, Maimonides is saying something very deep here. What is the origin of idolatry? It's our tendency to honor something huge, something big. So what is the biggest, more amazing thing we see? The sun, the moon, right? And we can say, wow, if God created them and made them so magnificent, we should worship them. That's the idea of idolatry. For the first time, we do it to honor God, but what happens next? We forget the God component and we honor the object. Okay, so this is the philosophy of idolatry according to Maimonides. It starts well. It starts by trying to honor God, but then we are obsessed with the object itself and we start worshiping the object itself. Okay? Let's take now this thinking to Mount Sinai. What would have happened had we known where Mount Sinai was? So for the first time, the first generation would probably build a temple there, right? Those of you who travel in the world, or you can do it very well in Jerusalem, every tiny place that is associated with an important event in Christian history, what do? There is a church, right? There is a church. You walk in Jerusalem, every 2 meters, there is a church. Okay, we spoke about one of them last week. We know where Jesus was born. This is in Bethlehem and in Jerusalem, where he was crucified, where he was resurrected. Church, okay? The Torah didn't want it. Why is that? Because had we known where Mount Sinai is, we would build a temple there. We'll continue with pilgrimage a few generations later, and then we'll end up worshiping the mountain. It wouldn't be God who will be worshipped. It will be the mountain, the physical location, the physical object, the synagogue or temple that would be built upon it. This is what Maimonides is saying. He's saying in Judaism, it's not about places, it's not about objects. Because if you worship an object or a place, you don't worship God. This is idolatry. And because the Torah was afraid of it, because the Torah didn't want us to worship the grave of Moses, because it's very tempting. See, all over the world, people have pilgrimages to graves of saints. Unfortunately, many Jews do the same. There's a whole thing of going to graves of saints, which Maimonides would excommunicate all of them. Because he said, you are not allowed to worship a grave. We should honor the people who were buried there, right? We just said Yizkor. But to have a pilgrimage to a grave, to pray in a grave, to have whatever you want in life, this is exactly what Maimonides has been fighting against. So he said, yeah, that's why we don't know where Mount Sinai is. That's why we don't know where Moses is buried, because we don't want anyone to worship. But now we're going even deeper. By the way, is there any question, any comment? Carol. When you travel in Sinai, and I have, there are many mountains that people will tell you are Mount Sinai. Okay? There is no location that is really Mount Sinai. It's very good to tour guides and others to take you to Mount Sinai, but there is absolutely no place like that. There is no holy place. There's nothing there. So yeah, you can say that this is Mount Sinai, but no, there is no official Mount Sinai. And here we see it's not a coincidence. It was designed by the Torah. We don't even know the real name of this place, let alone the location. So let's go to the second one, to the Sfat Emet, because this is really fascinating what he is saying here. Sfat Emet wrote this about 150 years ago. Okay, it was an important Hasidic Rebbe, okay, the Gerer Rebbe, 12. And all the people saw the voices, right? When God gave the Torah, we read the people, it's not written heard the voices, it said saw. V'kol ha'am ro'im et hakolot. Everyone was seeing the voices, which makes no sense in Hebrew as it makes no sense in English. But he learns a lot from it. That every person of Israel saw the root of their own life force and saw with their own eyes the portion of God from above that is within every person. This is the matter of the living point that is in every place and in every Jew. What the Ger Rebbe say here is huge. What he's saying here is that when we read in the Torah that the people saw Mount Sinai, maybe it wasn't really a mountain. What they saw was that their own soul, what they saw was the image of God within themselves. In other words, Mount Sinai is not a physical place. It's a place within each one of us. It's not that we were on Mount Sinai and we left Mount Sinai and this is it. No. We carry Sinai inside ourselves. And this is the reason, he says, that we don't know where it is. Had we known, we would have thought that Mount Sinai is just a nice physical place, and that's where God is. But he says no. That revelation that can repeat itself for each person, not only for the people who received the Torah some 3,200 years ago, this revelation, when we can see God within us, we can recognize the image of God within us, this is the true Sinai. Is that clear? I just think it's one of the most beautiful teachings I've ever read. And this is not some modern psychological thing. This is from 150 years ago. So for a Hasidic rabbi to say maybe Sinai was not really a physical place. This is the spot within us, this holy spot where we recognize the image of God, when we can see our own soul. I want you to think about it for a moment now, and because since I read it, it just occupies my thoughts, because it's not only that it's beautiful, it's hard to fully understand. But as you get closer, wow, there is a place, this revelation that is happening or can happen to each and every one of us. Let me just read the small letters in 12. Universality. Revelation was not located at the mountain. It was located in each person standing there. The nekudah, this point that he's talking about, the nekudah, the living point of holiness, is in every place. If Sinai were somewhere, Torah would be from somewhere. The mountain is a face so the encounter can be everywhere. Everywhere can be Sinai. When there is holiness, that's where Sinai is. You don't have to schlep to the desert across from Eilat with a Bedouin guide to tell you this is Sinai. It's a fine thing to do. It's fun, and if you like hiking, it's good. I've done that. But that's not the spiritual or the religious point of it. Okay, so this is the Sfat Emet, the Ger Rebbe. Any comments? Like it? I hope you do, because I do. And let me go to the next one. And this is from the Itzbitzer Rebbe, Mea Shiloach. So the first line of the Ten Commandments is in Hebrew. What is it in English? I'm the Lord your God. In Hebrew, it's Anochi Adonai. Now, those of you who speak Hebrew, how do you say I? Ani. That's not the word in the Ten Commandments. It's not ani, the word that we normally use. It's Anochi. There is an extra letter there. There is a chaf, okay? And Mea Shiloach said, why do we have this extra letter? Why the Ten Commandments were not written with the normal word for I am, ani? Why anuchi? Why this specific letter kaf? And let me just say it before we read it, he says kaf. When you put the word kaf or ke before a word in Hebrew, it means like. Okay, so I say that this is ke daf. It is like a paper, okay? You take your cheesecake and say, kemo ha'uga. It's like the cake that I had when my mother made it, okay? So you use the word ke to like. Not exactly the same, but like, okay? So remember that. Let's read it. Number 13. Anochi, I am the Lord your God. It does not say ani, it does not use the regular word, but anochi. For had I said ani, it would imply that God revealed all of his light completely, leaving nothing for them to deepen afterwards. But the chaf, this letter for anochi, shows that the revelation was not complete. It is only an example of the light God will reveal in the time to come. This is also really deep because Torah is open. The first revelation was deliberately partial. This is the ka. It's like me, God said, but it's not me entirely. We're not preserving a closed transmission from a fixed place. We're continuing one that was always meant to keep unfolding. So what he's saying is that God is saying, yeah, I gave you the Torah, but that was only the first step. This was not a one-time event. This is a continuous event. I keep giving the Torah. I keep revealing myself to you. It was not limited to a place. It was not limited to a group of people. It's something that is ongoing. So if God said, Ani Adonai, I'm the Lord, meaning I gave you everything on Mount Sinai 3,200 years ago and that's it. But what the rabbis say here, and again, another Hasidic rabbi for about the same time, about 150 years ago, said, no. God said, I just gave you a little bit. Let's just start the process. And that's why Mount Sinai is not so important. Because I didn't want you to think that all the truth, all the holiness are limited to one place, to Mount Sinai. No. Every place, every person, every teaching can be part of this revelation of the Torah. And I'll continue with the last one, because it's always good to end with Heschel, because he has a very important book, very tiny book. It's called Shabbat, Sabbath, okay? And he writes there, Judaism is a religion of time aiming at the sanctification of time. The Sabbaths in plural, are our great cathedrals. Judaism teaches us to be attached to holiness in time, to learn how to consecrate sanctuaries that emerge from the magnificent stream of the year. It's not the place, it's the Jewish calendar. Today is Shabbat. This is holy. Synagogue is really great, right? We have the Torah, we have the Ark, but we could have had a service here. No problem. We can come tomorrow night and show a movie in the sanctuary, no problem. You can do it in an ultra-Orthodox synagogue too, there's no problem. When the synagogue, the sanctuary becomes holy, when we do holy things there, when we pray, when we celebrate, right? But when we are out of there, and that's why the Torahs, by the way, are always in an ark. They're always concealed, right? Why? Because it's a room. We're not worshiping a space. We can worship in a place, but what makes it unique and sacred is our worship. That's what Heschel is saying. Judaism never cared about places. Now, of course, there are places that are part of our tradition, because one of the pillars of Judaism is the land of Israel. And in the land of Israel, there is Jerusalem. But neither of them have this kind of holiness. You can be super holy anywhere in the world, because holiness, your connection to God, is not limited to a place. So that's what Heschel is saying based on all that we read. So what I try to do today is to talk about something that we normally don't, and asking, where is Mount Sinai? And if Mount Sinai is the holiest place, because the holiest act in our history was on Mount Sinai, why we don't know the real name of this place, why we don't know the location, and we read that three good answers. One is from Maimonides, because the Torah didn't want us to worship a mountain. We're not the people who worship a mountain. So it was safer not to tell us where it was. Second is that the revelation on Sinai, when people were at Sinai, maybe it was not the physical location, the Sinai was inside of themselves. They were able to recognize the divinity within themselves, their own neshama, their own soul. Something that has nothing to do with a specific location. and every generation and every person can do it. And the third explanation is that God's revelation was only partial. It was the first step. But God continues to reveal God's self, God's messages, God's blessing. It started over there, but it continues and will continue forever. So this is the message that I wanted to share with you for this Shabbat and for this Shavuot. Hopefully we learned something new in honor of the holiday. Thank you for staying and studying. And if there are some leftovers, do help yourselves. Shabbat Shalom.